You're absolutely right, John. Influenza fell off the radar screen.
So I think in this country, we've taken a very liberal approach to mortality. There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. Right now, we're still recording it, and the great thing about having forms that come in and a form that has the ability to mark it as COVID-19 infection, the intent is right now that if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that as a COVID-19 death.
Can you be sure? I mean, you hear from coroners that that's not necessarily the case. Or are you sure? How can you be confident about that? And is there any concern that it skews the
I spent so much time believing all the lies to keep the dream alive. Now it makes me sad, it makes me mad at truth, loving what was you. Let you stop.
My next guest is a doctor and state senator in Minnesota who is deeply troubled by the CDC's latest guidance for counting COVID deaths. Dr. Scott Jensen joins me now. Doctor, I want to read for our viewers what the CDC says in part about how to count COVID deaths relating to that last issue we just raised. In cases where a definite diagnosis of COVID cannot be made, but is suspected or likely, like the circumstances are compelling with a reasonable degree of certainty, it is acceptable to report COVID-19 on a death certificate as probable or presumed. So, doctor, what's the problem with that?
Well, in short, it's ridiculous. I spent some time earlier today just going through the CDC's manual on how to complete death certificates and the parts that were specifically written for physicians. And in that manual, it talks of precision and specificity, and that's what we were trained with. The determination of the cause of death is a big deal. It has impact on estate planning. It has impact on future generations. And the idea that we're going to allow people to massage and sort of game the numbers is a real issue, because we're going to undermine the trust. And right now, as we see politicians doing things that aren't necessarily motivated on fact and science, the public's their trust in politicians is already wearing thin. The CDC has basically said, if it's probable at COVID, call it COVID. If you don't do a test, that's okay. If you do a test and it's negative, still call it COVID. And then they had the nerve to tell us, and oh, by the way, we're not going to be auditing the cause of death in this. So they're basically saying, don't worry about it. Don't worry about a lack of precision or a lack of accuracy. And then what I've been saying, John, is if you follow the money, you'll see that if you hit a certain frequency, if you hit a certain number, a certain threshold of COVID-19 admissions to the hospital between January 1st and June 10th, then you get a spiff of $77,000 per COVID-19 admission. So you can imagine the frenetic activity for heaven's sakes, test everybody. And so we're testing everybody. I think what we're seeing is, and it started early on, for some confounding reason, there was a willingness to distort the data, or at least massage it. And I think that's what I called out in early April when I was being advised by the Minnesota Department of Health and the CDC that if I was completing a death certificate that involved possibly a COVID death or probably a COVID death, then I should go ahead and put that in part one of the death certificate as the cause of death. What was even more alarming was that they called out in that document that if COVID-19 was felt to be a contributing condition, don't put it where we put contributing conditions, which was part two. Put it in part one as a cause of death. That was right off the bat, the astonishing dictate, if you will. So right at the very beginning, we saw that there was some energy being given to expand COVID-19 death certificates to be maximized. And along the way, you're absolutely right, John, influenza fell off the radar screen.
So I think in this country, we've taken a very liberal approach to mortality.
I'm all out of hope. One more bad break could bring a fall. And when I'm far from home,
Joining me now by phone, a man currently managing this crisis in what has become the epicenter of the pandemic globally, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo. Governor, thank you for making some time. I want to start on the ventilator issue. The president seems to think that the estimate of needing 30,000 ventilators, he feels it's too high, that you're overestimating how much you're going to need. What's your response to that?
Well, Chris, listening to your lead-in, and thank you for having me. You're exactly right. This all comes down to ventilators. And by the way, it did in China, it did in South Korea, it did in Italy, and it did as soon as the numbers started to break here. And it is unusual. The number of ventilators we have in our healthcare system, when you add up all the hospitals in the state of New York, is about 4,000. We need about 40,000 here. This is a disease that is a respiratory disease. People are on respirators, the ventilators, and the ventilators are a matter of life and death. And they're on ventilators longer with this disease than most other diseases. The average length of stay on a ventilator is about 4 to 5 days. Here it's about 20 days. Which is one of the reasons why you need so many. The president says 30,000 sounds high. I don't know what the basis is. I don't have a medical degree, so what I do is I just study the numbers and the science and the data, and I follow the data.
Hard to get relief. Let you serve these eyes without a face. Let you serve these eyes without a face. You got no human grace. Your eyes without a face. I've spent so much time